The U.S. has a history of defense cooperation with the Nordic countries of Finland and Sweden. That collaboration could increase with their likely accession to NATO. I spoke with Major General Karl Engelbrektson, the commander of the Swedish Army, and Lieutenant General Pasi Välimäki, commander of the Finnish Army. Gentlemen, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having us.
General Karl, I want to start with you. As you know, Russia partly justifies its invasion of Ukraine by blaming NATO for enlargement up to Russia's borders. How do you respond to that?
Well, I say that the current world order that we believe in is the rules-based order, where countries and nations decide based on the will of the population and the leadership on what direction when it comes to security policy that they want to use. And it seems like many nations want to join NATO for the will of the free people. And it has nothing to do with that NATO is an aggressive partner towards someone. It's about defending the alliance.
What are your thoughts, General Pasi, on NATO enlargement as a threat to Russia from their perspective?
NATO is a defensive organization by nature. There are a lot of like-minded nations, allies within the alliance, looking at defending their own nation and the alliance. So I think that is what it is and how it should be understood.
Well, currently two countries have not agreed to Sweden and Finland joining NATO. That's Turkey and Hungary. What are you expecting from them, and what's the timeline?
That is totally a political question for those nations to decide. I just can expect that they will have their political processes and hope it will be closed by very soon.
What advantages, General Karl, does Finland and Sweden bring to NATO? What should especially the United States, expect to gain?
It's many things that we actually bring to the table, but to start with, the first and more obvious one is territory. So if you look at the northern part of Europe, and especially the Nordic Baltic countries, together we constitute one operational area. And bringing Sweden and Finland into the NATO context means that we can plan together in the same geography, the same climate, and to be better prepared. And the NATO process will allow that in a much more smoother way than it is today.
And what about the Arctic? Would that deter Russian aggression in the Arctic?
Of course, if we join forces, the synergy of the forces already existing in the Arctic, especially Sweden, Finland and Norway, the way we know how to fight in that terrain, in that climate, if we can use our forces in the same context and be well planned and prepared, that will be more deterrent than it is today.
General Pasi, I want to ask you about the size of your defense spending as a percentage of GDP. Can you give me an idea of what you spend on defense?
Actually, we made a decision last December to purchase 62 F-35s, and that's a 10 billion euro contract for an extensive period of time, and that actually took our GDP percent up to 2%. And in the spring after the invasion to Ukraine, the Finnish government made another appropriation bill of 1.7 billion euros for the next 3 years to ramp up spare parts, ammunition and such, which basically takes us closer to 2.6% for the next few years. So I would say that thinking about the Finnish taxpayers are putting their showing the money, as you say, and I think we are creating a credible force with credible funding, and the defense, the will to defend Finland as part of the alliance is high as ever.
What about you, General Karl, for Sweden?
Our government has taken the decision that we will, as quickly as possible, rise to 2%. Right now, it's pending. It's no later than 28, but I think it will be moved to the left because there is opportunities to do investment and it's the same as in Finland. The public support of spending more on defense is there, and it's necessary, and we have the plans to do it.
I wonder, General Pasi, from Finland's perspective, how would NATO membership change your collaboration with the US Army and your relationship?
I think we have a very, very good working relationship at the bilateral level now already with the US, Navy, Air and Army. But of course it will intensify and give us more opportunities to complement each other within the alliance. But we are already starting it with allies in this respect. So I see only good possibilities ahead of us.
What about Sweden? How will your interaction with the US Army change?
Well, we came from the same background as Finland, so we have a trilateral political cooperation that is decided on the political level. That will of course only expand and be deepened when and if we will join NATO, and it will increase, and it has already done. We have a very good relationship with all levels in US. I will sign this week with General McConville a bilateral staff-to-staff agreement, and we have already big support from the 5th Corps, 1st Division, exercising together with us, and together we exercise up north in the cold climate to be better prepared for Arctic warfight.
You mentioned that trilateral agreement. What does that? What's the significance of that? What's practically what do you gain? What do the Americans gain?
It gives us the possibility on the armed forces level, the joint chief of defense level, but also the armed forces services, Army, Navy, Air Force. It allows us to have a closer relationship because we are of course politically steered, and that's how it should be.
General Pasi, I want to ask you, you met recently with the commanding general of US Army Europe and Africa in September. What came out of that discussion?
General Williams visited us, and that was a good moment for him to stop in Finland and get an orientation of what we are about. Our structures, our force posture, spending of the procurement. And of course, because he's land commander for NATO at the same time, so it was very beneficial. So we spoke about interoperability, how to develop that in practice, not just PowerPoints, but really how to do that. Also about Ukraine, the situation as a whole. So it was a good orientation from many respects. And of course, we agreed on how to go forward with training with the different US troops in theater, as well as from the continental US.
And
General Karl, he visited you as well?
Yes, he did, and we spoke about basically the same matters, but it's also about friendship, because Daryl was invited for several years, but then came COVID, and I wanted to take him to the oldest war academy in the world that is situated in Sweden. So
it is in Sweden.
Because you know, he was the commandant of West Point. I wanted to tease him with that a little bit. So. apart from the serious questions, it's about friendship and trust.
General Pasi did talk about interoperability,
yeah,
which is going to be extremely important in those allied operations. How do you actually get to that point? Is it a matter of setting standards and everybody's got to meet them?
It is different venues. Standards is one, procedures is one. And in the end, it's about human interoperability, understanding friendship and relationship, and understanding different perspectives and cultures.
And General Karl, Sweden is working with the US to increase stability in the Baltic Sea region. What is the Swedish Army's role in that?
Well, the Baltic Sea region, primarily the role is predominantly for our Navy and for the Air Force. But of course we do that as well by exercising regularly with Finland and with Norway, but of course also with our Baltic friends around that area. But as you know, to move armies is a bit harder than moving Air Force and Navy. So we do it predominantly with our neighbors, Finland and Denmark.
General Välimäki, I want to ask you about how Finland and Sweden joining NATO would affect Baltic security.
I think it's only going to improve and make it more stable when we are predictable. We are very stable as nations, but also we are very capable. Together we train a lot. And just a couple of months ago, we had a significant size exercise up north, which was called on very short notice. And it was a manifestation of our long-term commitment to train together and showing interoperability. And then joining also was UK troops from Estonia. So in many respects, we are showing that we are shoulder to shoulder. And I think that shows also increases the stability in the area and predictability of who we are, what we are standing for.
The Swedish Armed Forces and US Special Forces conducted exercises with the HIMARS in northern Sweden. What was the outcome?
Well, the outcome was, of course, success. We mission accomplished, so we shot live fire, full range of HIMARS. As you might know, we have big training areas in both our countries, so that's possible to do. That is something that we can contribute with, and so it was a good capability for us to learn more about. We would like to go there.
I'd like to ask you both specifically how you're supporting the war in Ukraine.
Well, we first, that starts with the political level, but on the practical, tactical level, like many other countries, we have given them material. Some of the good war-fighting capabilities that we have, that is man-borne anti-tank missiles, well known in US, 84s. That is a big bunch of it, but also other stuff that has not been yet public. So I stick to the man-borne 84. But we have done training with Ukraine for a very long time, especially when it comes to mining and demining and tactics.
And General Pasi, I mean, you share a long border with Russia. How are you defending that border and supporting the war in Ukraine?
That's a very good question. We have to be very conscious of the packages that we send to Ukraine. We have sent so far 8 packages. Some of it is money for them to use to buy some satellite communications, for example. Some are ammunition and military equipment, which we tend not to talk more about. But I think the main support is not only material, but it is also the political side, which our Prime Minister just recently in Prague stated quite clearly when she was asked, how do you end the war in Ukraine? And her answer was, Russia leaves Ukraine. That's how you stop the war.
And that's how we'll end this interview. Thank you, gentlemen, so much for being on the program.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on any future Government Matters interviews.